What does life with a chronic illness look like?
And what kind of support and resources are available for people with MS?
This is Enable, the Disability Podcast, where we'll share stories, experiences, support, resources, and more for people with disabilities and different abilities. We are at Enable Podcast on social media. My name is Deaf Jeff Herbert.
And my name is Kurt Hauer. We're talking with Nicole Pedra, an influencer, actress, model, and chronic illness advocate. Thank you.
Hi, guys. I'm actually so excited to be here. I wish I had been more involved in everything while at Syracuse, but my memories of Cuse are good. I had a lot of fun. I actually I really wish I could go back. I'm one of those people, and I just want to go to another frat party. Like, just have me back to go to a party because Syracuse has the best parties.
That's right. Nicole, you were first diagnosed with MS at age 10. How did that happen? Were there signs or symptoms that led to the diagnosis?
So the childhood onset of multiple sclerosis is really different than for adults. The onset typically is more severe. And instead of being these small signs that you kind of pass off when you're older, if you have tingling in your hand, you're like weird and you don't really think about it because these symptoms go away. You might have double vision one day, but you don't really put it all together or get the proper care and go into a doctor that you need. So for me, when I got sick, I actually had the flu first, and it just transitioned into this really weird neurological symptoms. So basically, I had optic neuritis, so I was seeing double vision. So I was like on the couch sick watching TV like this. And my nanny noticed because my parents actually happened to be out of town, which definitely caused some PTSD and different things. But I was watching TV with one eye closed. I couldn't feed myself, or walk because I had transverse paralysis, and I'm trying to remember everything. And I had Bell's palsy in my face. That was a big one, obviously. So we went to my pediatrician. We started seeing the pediatrician first when the flu came, and then they were like, you got to go to the hospital. At the hospital, they thought I might have had a stroke. They thought maybe I had Lyme disease. They thought maybe it was a brain tumor. But they were definitely super concerned that they were seeing these neurological symptoms in a child.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nicole. And I'm just curious about like what kind of support and resources do people with MS have?
So there are actually there's a lot of support and there are a lot of resources that people with MS can find. The MS Society is a great place to start. I wish I had been more involved and used more of these different types of support, but just felt so ashamed of my disease that I wanted nothing to do with it. I didn't wanna have any of these outlets. I just wanted to be a normal kid, right? At that point in your life, you just wanna be like everybody else. But the MS Society has patient navigators. MS Focus helps you, which is a different organization, helps you figure out how to get proper care. They will drive you to appointments and everything. There's a lot of online support groups. You know, I really believe that people for chronic illness can find their best friends online because it's not often that you know somebody in your world to talk to who, it's one thing for other people to be sympathetic, right? That's kind of where you start. With sympathy, you can accept somebody's situation regardless if you understand it, but it's not the same as someone who literally has dealt with what you dealt with. So, finding people online, a lot of people have come together through my personal page, but there's a lot of different support groups and programs through the MS Society and also MS Focus.
One other question that I had a follow up to that is like the treatment plan for you. What does that look like?
So for me, when I was a kid, there were only 3 drugs on the market. It was Avonex, Copaxone, and another one, like maybe Riboxan or something. But they were concerned about starting me on any medication because I had not gone through puberty yet, and I was so young. So after when I got to like 14, they wanted to put me on medicine that was pretty aggressive because as a kid, you tend to have where an adult might have a few flare ups, maybe go to the hospital twice a year. Kids will go maybe 6 or 7. So they have more relapses that they need to go to the hospital for treatment. So because I was in and out of the hospital so much, they were like, "We gotta treat her with something aggressive." So they put me on one drug that wasn't very good for me. I mean, the way it dealt with my disease was great, but it was once a week, and I really didn't wanna be, you know, reminded that I was sick. And the side effects were pretty bad for me. So when I got the shot, and it was like a serious shot, it wasn't just like the little, surface needle that goes into fat somewhere. It was like into your muscle. Uh, yeah, it was awful, and because it was so bad, I had to go to my pediatrician for it every week because they were like, "Oh, you'll be able to give it to yourself eventually," and I was like, "There's no way I'm sticking this needle into my body." Um, so the side effects were I would get the shot on a Friday because the side effects were bad enough that I would have to, like, be at home. I would get flu-like symptoms, I'd have chills, then I'd have a fever, and it just kinda it took my day away. So Friday night was just for that. And as I got into high school, I was like, and I was kind of rebellious, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, no way. And I started skipping my shots. So we really realized that wasn't good for me. And then when this new drug came out that had um, a lot of what is the word efficacy, um, they were like, "Let's put you on it," but there wasn't a lot of data because it was a new drug, but it was once a month and it was an infusion, which really worked with my lifestyle because I was going to college, right? And I was like, "I don't wanna, have to get a shot every week, no way." So, it was a once a month infusion, it's called Tisabri, and I've actually been on it for 18 years. Yeah, and it put me in remission, and I've been in remission for, like, 16, 17.
You mentioned flares or flare-ups. Can you explain what those are and how other people can be supportive in those situations?
Yeah, so flare-ups are just basically when your symptoms suddenly intensify or they kind of show up all at once. So you might have double vision, right? Once you have diagnosed with MS, you might experience these symptoms that come and go. So you might have double vision, you might have like tingling and numbness in your hands. For me, when those things happened, my doctor usually wanted to wait a day or 2 because sometimes they just go away on their own and other times they're like come in for prednisone. That's the way I was treated a lot. I think now maybe they're doing it a little differently, but I always had a round of steroids. And it's not just like a bad day or being tired. It's really things that can start affecting your cognition more, maybe your energy, your balance, your sensory intolerance. So it's kind of a shift of things and symptoms intensifying more that you would notice. So that's the first answer. The second one is basically, unfortunately, there's a lot of po- um, positive toxicity out there. And luckily, we've really, and it's not perfect yet, but we've come to a time where we believe people's mental health more, right? Depression, anxiety is more recognized. We are starting to not assume people are making things up, right? So, being tired and stuff, a lot of the response could have been push through, or it's not that bad, or everyone gets tired, or you could have it worse. You should be grateful. At least it's not cancer, right? There's all this comparison. And those things aren't really helpful. The things that are really helpful for when you're in a flare or for just having a disease is believing the person without questioning it. You don't have to understand somebody to be supportive and believe. And for a lot of people, that's kind of where the gap is because they can't imagine themselves in the situation. They have misconceptions or they don't understand other people's situation. And so they kind of question them. Another thing you can do is like be really flexible with your schedule and kind of lower your expectations without guilt. So if I'm not able to contribute out as much at home, my husband understands that. He doesn't make me feel guilty about having to do more that day. He doesn't, if we have plans, he's flexible. He also is a homebody. But, basically being considerate of someone else's situation and, offer help instead of advice, right? Don't say like try this to get better, just say how can I help you? And I kind of I think those are the biggest things. Don't go into fix it mode, right? It's kind of like when you're a kid and you have a problem too. It's like the same thing. I don't want you to fix it. I just want you to hear me and be supportive and be like, wow, that really sucks.
Great advice. Yeah. So, Nicole, you and I share something in common. So, for most of my adult life, I did not share with others that I had a disability. And I kept it quiet. It was only recently, as my disease progressed, that it became more apparent to others. But I understand you didn't publicly speak about MS at first, and I'm just curious, why did you choose not to, and what changed your mind?
Well, I want to hear why you didn't first.
Oh, all right. Well, that's fair enough. Well, really, I was kind of embarrassed, and I thought people would think less of me if I said I had a disability. So I didn't want um, any reason for somebody to not hold me to the same level of expectation that they would hold others to. So that's really what did it for me.
Yeah, so very similar. I wanted to prove to people I'm competitive, I'm ambitious. So when I was diagnosed as a kid and I could hide it, right? Like people aren't going to notice my one leg being a little bit weaker than the other. They're not going to notice these weird things maybe that I do, like if I'm going like this cuz my hands kind of numb. So, I was determined to be just as good as everybody else, if not better. That was like my goal. And that created a lot of anger in me at the same time and not really admitting about my MS, kinda just trying to, like, push it away and not accept it in most of the situations, but I was really ashamed, and unfortunately, when I was diagnosed, there wasn't any protection in the job world, there was no protection for careers and stuff, so my mom was actually told that I couldn't tell anybody or I wouldn't get a job when I was older. And I think as a kid, in your mind, you translate that into a certain way. Well, like, this is a secret I have to keep. I can't tell anyone. And I didn't want like I said, as a kid, all you want is to be like your peers, especially in like middle school and stuff. So I didn't want anyone to think I was weird. I didn't want anyone to think I was different. I wanted to be the same as everybody else. And because my disease was so invisible, and if I got sick, I could just go to the hospital and not tell everyone and get my treatment. I kept it hidden. I was ashamed. I also went through a transformation when I was on prednisone for an entire summer. My body really changed. It caused me to have a very moon-shaped face. For anyone who has gone through steroids like that, I totally get it. You don't feel like it's your body anymore. And when I lost the weight, I got treated so differently that I wanted to keep my looks and the way people thought about me a certain way. So that just added to the not wanting to tell people. And then going to a fun school like Syracuse and being in, one of the sororities where you know, it's known as fun and, like, pretty girls or whatever. I was in Kappa. I didn't want anyone to know. I want especially boys, I didn't want boys to be like, "Oh, I'm not gonna date her." And the biggest thing about it, and I'm sure you can relate to this is people's misconceptions, right? When they hear about someone's disease, they go immediately to what they saw in media, that one person they might know. And a lot of these chronic illnesses are so different and have such a large spectrum is I didn't want anyone to judge me and be like multiple sclerosis and then be like, "Oh my god, you're going to be in a wheelchair." Right? So I wanted nothing to do with it and I kept it hidden for 2 decades.
When you did decide to start talking about it, what led to that decision, and how did you find your voice for it?
So, when I was in LA and I was doing stuff, like, not in corporate world, when I was, like, more of an independent contractor, the thing about LA is people work with people they wanna work with, and time is money. So, I didn't wanna tell anybody because I thought people would think of me as a liability and not wanna work with me. But during COVID, first off, well, it's two parts. During COVID, you saw the Me Too movement. And I don't these were women who have kept something a secret that they were ashamed of for so many years. And there was so much power in one person coming out that more people started coming out. And I just thought, like, these women are so brave and they're talking about something they're ashamed of and they're changing people's lives and making other people feel, you know, like they can talk about something and they're not less worthy. So I said to myself, I've had this disease for 23 years and I have so much experience that it's a little selfish of me. And I know it really wasn't because it was my own journey, but I could be helping so many people. And that's help that I did not have. When I was a kid, there was no one in the limelight. There was no one who I could look at and be like, "Oh, they were diagnosed as a kid and they were okay. They lived a great life. They did all these things." If you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would say like alive because you just didn't see it in kids so much. So, between that and between kind of trying to really figure out what I wanted my career to be and they have that saying like you have to spend so many hours to be an expert in something. And I was like, well, I've got like 26 years of experience with MS. Like maybe I should go that direction. And then Selma Blair came out about it. And I was like, if she's an actress and she's going to come out about it, and there was so much, talk about disabilities and how like you cannot have disability discrimination and discrimination about these things, even though it still happens, that I was like, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to use my platform. I don't want to just be like another model or like whatever, someone wearing clothes on Instagram. And I was like, this is really what I should be doing. And I came out about it and I couldn't believe the response I got to it. And people really felt comforted by the fact that I had lived with this disease for so many years and that I was somebody who had kind of gone before them.
The response on social media has been phenomenal to see. I see the comments, especially like on TikTok and Instagram. And one of the things that I also saw that you've talked about before is the spoon theory. And for people that are not familiar with chronic illnesses and other disabilities, can you explain what the spoon theory is?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great metaphor, and I'm gonna butcher this woman's name, but it was created by Christine. I'm like looking at the last name here. Mizariandin wait, Mizaranding? I can't. I, like, looked it up how to pronounce earlier, but I'm so bad. Like, that's one of the things that dropped from Syracuse for me, like, phonetics and pronunciation. But it was based on her experience with lupus, and it actually was a way to explain to a friend her limited daily energy. And so if you look at spoons, and spoons are a unit of energy where a normal person, we'll call them, even though I hate that word, might have 100 spoons of energy for the day. People with chronic illness might only have 20. And that makes them have to really pick and choose where they're putting their energy. And unfortunately, from day to day, you might be starting with a different amount. So everyone starts with a different amount of energy. And once you spend them, they're gone. And that's where you kind of like feel like you don't have much energy to function. So for me, when I know I have, let's say, uh, a friend's birthday party to go to on the weekend, I have to make sure that I really conserve my energy during the week so that I'm not already exhausted when I wake up on that day. And I need to know that that day I'm going to need a lot of energy for this party and that I should spend my morning conserving energy more. Like I'm not gonna about to go do a hit class the day I have to go to this party, right? Like that kind of workout is gonna just expend too much. And the other thing for me, and this is just from years of experience, I have to realize if I wanna overspend my spoon a at the my spoons, my energy at this birthday party, that's fine, like, if I'm having a good time, I wanna do what I'm doing, but I have to realize and accept and know that it's okay that the next day, I might not be able to do a lot. I might be, like, horizontal for most of the day, and that's kind of how I went through things in college. Um, luckily, you don't always have to be in class to learn everything.
Mhm.
And I planned my schedule, like, everything was, like, later in the day, so I could sleep until 10:30 if I wanted to. So I could go out as many times as I wanted to and just, like, have things later and spend, like, a Sunday completely horizontal. So it just takes a lot of planning, and you have to learn your body and realize that if you overspend, you are gonna need time to recover, and that is okay. Like, I wanted to live my life the way I wanted to live it. I didn't want things to be limited. I wanted to have a real experience of being in college, and I just needed to understand that a hangover for me might be, like, 100 times worse for somebody else. Sorry, I wanted to say one more thing about the spoon theory. Why people use it is because it's easier to explain to other people, right? It explains why everyday tasks can be exhausting and it shows it's about capacity, not motivation. It's not a case of being motivated enough, right? And that's really hard for me because I have ADHD and I like to be very productive. So it's hard for me to be like, I don't have energy for this, but I really wish I could get this thing done.
All right, got it. So you mentioned you like to help others, and we like to help others too. One of the things by how we do that is just sharing experiences and also taking advice from folks who are living, their illness. So, what advice do you have for others who feel like they're struggling with MS or some other chronic illness?
So I want people to know because this is the way I felt that you are not weak. What you're going through is generally hard, and you can't compare it to somebody else's situation, right? You don't know what it's like to be in someone else's body, and you have to acknowledge the difficulties that you're going through, right? I didn't want to acknowledge these things, and I thought, oh, if I try harder, and that's not the case. You're not weak, and what you're dealing with is hard, right? And the other thing I want them to know is that your capacity changing, right? When you're diagnosed with something, it is not failure, right? Being diagnosed with a disease and not being able to do maybe what you used to do is not a case of failure. You are not failing. You can still have the life you wanted. It's just going to look a little different. There's still a lot of hope there. What's it? Rest is not giving up. And you don't owe anyone productivity or optimism. Optimism, I think, is related to hope, but there's practical optimism. You first have to accept the state you're in. You have to allow yourself those emotions, and then you can move more into an action and you can carry on through that. But if you skip that middle step, you're going to be all types of messed up. Just kidding. But you have to acknowledge it.
Sure.
That's good advice. Here in the Enable podcast, we also like to remind people that we're not solely defined by the things that we can't do when there's so many things we can do. So, Nicole, what do you like to do for fun?
So for me, I like doing a whole conglomerate of things. If the most important thing for me is that I'm not monitoring my body. So if I can handle being present and time just passes without me even realizing it, that means I'm doing something fun. So whether even when I go to like a party or something, if I'm like, oh my, by myself and being super aware of everything, doesn't mean I'm having fun. I'm going to exit. Got to save my spoons. But I like doing things like fishing. I love arts and crafts. Like going to a girl brunch, nightmare. Just chatting with people. I'm so good at chatting one-on-one or one with two because I can really dive into things, but doing like a group conversation, everyone interrupts, like people aren't necessarily paying attention, and I'm very aware of those things. So that just kind of makes me want to exit. But I love arts and crafts. I'm a big game person. So I love playing games. I love going to like arcades. Just a lot of boy things, to be honest. I love like fishing. I like just being outside and getting dirty, building forts. Anything like that is fun to me.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for taking time to share with us. It's really important stuff and good stuff. And do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with us, Nicole?
I do. I want everyone to know that if you are struggling, you are not alone. I know how isolating it can feel when you're struggling and that there's people out there who aren't relating and whatnot, but there are people there. If you're struggling, you are not alone.
Well said. Thank you again for joining us. This is Enable the Disability Podcast. We are at Enable Podcast on social media. Please like, follow, and subscribe.
And please share this podcast with your family and friends so we can share more stories of people with different abilities that bring us all together. Thank you.